Welcome to The Eye Opener. I'm your host, Michael Lewis. Confidential tax information of hundreds of America's wealthiest are leaked. This rare incident comes at the time when Biden pushes for corporate tax reforms. Kamala Harris tells Guatemalans do not come on her first foreign trip. How do you think the locals react? A scientific study says there were no bats or pangolins sold in the Wuhan wet market, dealing yet another blow to the CCP's claims. A veteran election manager in Fulton County explained in detail about why an examination of the mail-in ballots is absolutely needed. Okay, my friends, let's take a closer look together. The Internal Revenue Service, also famously known as the IRS, is involved in a big scandal. The nonprofit organization ProPublica released and published confidential tax information of hundreds of Americans who happen to be some of the richest in the country. The leaked IRS data covers more than 15 years of the wealthiest Americans, including Warren Buffett, Mark Zuckerberg, and Bill Gates. It shows not just their incomes and taxes, but also an unparalleled look into their investments, stock trades, gambling winnings, and audit results. Tax information is among the top secrets in the federal government. ProPublica said it has decided to reveal individual tax information of some of the wealthiest because it is only by seeing specifics that the public can understand the realities of the country's tax system. The information destroys the belief that everyone pays their fair share of the taxes and the wealthiest pay the most. Although how much or how little these people pay is still confidential, the reality is the wealthiest frequently don't pay taxes. In 2007 and 2011, Jeff Bezos, then a multi-billionaire and now the world's richest man, didn't pay a penny in federal income tax. In 2018, tech tycoon Elon Musk, the second richest person in the world, also paid no federal income tax. Michael Bloomberg did the same in recent years, and George Soros paid no federal income taxes 3 years in a row. We should note that it's illegal for the IRS to reveal confidential tax information to the public. The Taxpayer Bill of Rights states, taxpayers have the right to expect that any information they provide to the IRS will not be disclosed unless authorized by the taxpayer or by law. ProPublica didn't say how it obtained the information. However, the timing of the disclosure is very interesting. Currently, Biden is busy finding ways to fund his infrastructure proposal and more of his ambitious plans. Corporate tax hikes seem to be the most effective to him, and he's been trying to get Democrats on board. During his first address to a joint session of Congress, Biden blasted some big corporations for not paying taxes. He said, a recent study shows that 55 of the nation's biggest corporations paid zero in federal income tax last year. No federal taxes on more than $40 billion in profits. That's not right. We're going to reform corporate taxes. The Department of Labor released new numbers on Tuesday. Job openings reached a record number since 2000, with April having 9.3 million jobs available. Yet the total number of hires barely changed at 6.1 million. These numbers are further evidence that there are plenty of jobs, just not enough people to fill them. More than 20 states have set to end relief benefits this summer, months earlier than they were scheduled to expire. Interestingly, resignations also hit a record high, rising to 4 million in April. With a labor market that has a huge job surplus, employees have more freedom to choose where they work. Kamala Harris made her first foreign trip on June 6 to Guatemala in an effort to address the alleged root cause of the border crisis. However, locals didn't appreciate her visit. Harris was greeted by protesters telling her to go home and mind your own business. Harris is known for her extreme pro-abortion stance. She voted against banning abortions after 20 weeks. In 2019 and 2020, she also voted against protecting babies born alive after an abortion. Some Guatemalans took the opportunity to criticize her on this matter. A large sign reads, "Guatemala is pro-life." Nevertheless, after months of ongoing pressure at the southern border and bipartisan calls for her to address this border crisis, Harris made a major concession. On Monday, Harris told Guatemalans, "Do not come," and claimed one of the administration's priority would be to discourage illegal migration.
I want to be clear to folks in this region who are thinking about making that dangerous trek to the United States-Mexico border. Do not come. Do not come. There are legal methods by which migration can and should occur. But we, as one of our priorities, will discourage illegal migration. And I believe if you come to our border, you will be turned back. So let's discourage our friends, our neighbors, our family members from embarking on what is otherwise an extremely dangerous journey.
How would illegal migrants be turned back? The Biden administration needs to prove it with action. But Harris's message immediately ignited the progressive wing of the party. In a series of tweets on Monday, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez voiced her disapproval. She wrote, "This is disappointing to see. Seeking asylum at any U.S. border is a 100% legal method of arrival. We can't help set someone's house on fire and then blame them for fleeing." The radical congresswoman interpreted illegal crossings at the southern border, oftentimes through drug cartels, as legal. This seems to suggest the only position AOC would accept is completely open borders. Another Progressive Squad member, Representative Ilhan Omar, wrote, "We should not abandon our values and rights to far-right white nationalists." But this is not the consensus among Democrats or people of color. A 2019 Harvard-Harris poll confirmed a large majority of African Americans and Latinos would vote for a presidential candidate who stood for strengthening border security to reduce illegal immigration. Illegal immigrants have been tied to a significant decrease in black working class wages, as well as a decline in the black employment rate over the last 40 years. Sociologist Musa Garbi reported Black Americans are more supportive of limiting immigration than any other bloc of the Democratic coalition. And Hispanics actually tend to be more concerned about illegal immigration than are whites or blacks. However, to date, Harris has yet to visit the southern border. She keeps postponing the visit, so it's going to get harder and harder to make the trip because it would be too late and too embarrassing for her to face reality. Issues surrounding the southern border, not just the migrant surge, include humanitarian concerns, drug cartels, and human smuggling that are running rampant. They aren't expected to go away anytime soon. Can Harris resist a visit forever? I doubt it. She's probably thinking about it too, but hasn't found a way out. During an NBC interview yesterday, Harris was caught off guard when asked why she hadn't visited the border.
Just quickly put a button.
Okay.
Do you have any plans to visit the border?
At some point, we are going to the border. We've been to the border. So this whole thing about the border, we've been to the border. We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe. And I don't understand the point that you're making. I'm not discounting the importance of the border.
She became rather defensive and couldn't help repeating, "We've been to the border." Remember, in April, Harris's answer to the same question was, "I'm not going to play political games." Well, finally she realizes these aren't games. The border crisis is real. As the lead to tackling the problem, Harris has to travel to the border herself to at least show support to the local and Border Patrol communities that have been suffering from and combating the crisis. In our previous videos, we covered the story of Bryon Cross, the Virginia elementary school teacher who was suspended for opposing new gender policy. Well, we have some good news about the teacher. He will be returning to the classroom. A state judge on Tuesday directed Loudoun County Public Schools to restore Cross's position as a physical education teacher and drop all other disciplinary measures against him. 2 weeks ago at a school board meeting, Cross spoke against a proposal that mandates teachers to address students by their preferred pronouns. He said he wouldn't affirm that a biological boy can be a girl and vice versa because it's against his religion, and he called the idea sinning against our God. The school board quickly suspended Cross and barred him from accessing any of the school's facilities. Well, Cross sued. The lawsuit claims that his suspension and related penalties were in retaliation for his comments, which were protected by the First Amendment. The school district later claimed Cross's suspension wasn't for his comments, but the disruption they created. Reportedly, there were a few emails from parents saying they didn't want Cross to teach, but this wasn't true. Cross returned to school the next day after making the comments, and there was no problem. Loudoun County had another school board meeting just yesterday. The meeting exploded with parents and teachers angry at the county's actions against Cross.
When I spoke, I was thinking about my values, my students, my parents, and my fellow teachers. The truth is, I'm not alone. Many of us are concerned that proposed policies would harm students and require us to violate our beliefs by saying things that are not true.
Now, before we continue, if you like our program, please hit that like button and subscribe. It'll force the algorithm to share this video to potentially thousands of people. And today, I have the pleasure of toasting to another amazing eye-opener supporter, Sandra. Sandra sent me a picture of her drinking out of not one, not two, but 3 mugs that matter, and now holds the eye-opener record for drinking out of 3 mugs simultaneously. And with that being said, my friends, everyone grab your mugs and allow me to say thank you to Sandra. Your support is greatly appreciated. Salute. The possibility that COVID-19 virus evolved naturally is looking dim. A new published study by Oxford University found there was neither bats nor pangolins being sold at Wuhan wet markets when the virus broke out. At the beginning of the outbreak in Wuhan, the CCP said the virus came from a wet market. The market was identified as the origin of the pandemic. Later, Chinese media reported that bats and pangolins were the potential intermediate host of the novel coronavirus, supporting a natural development theory. In February 2020, South China Agricultural University announced the discovery of a 99% genetic match between the COVID-19 virus and a strain of the virus found in pangolins. Somehow, people started to believe the market was selling bats and pangolins. But, according to Oxford University, the 2 main suspects had alibis. The university said its Wildlife Conservation Research Unit was conducting research across Wuhan's wet markets through May 2017 and November 2019 to study a different disease. The research team happened to be in the right place at the right time to document the wild animals sold in these markets in the lead up to the pandemic. The study, published by scientific journal Nature, documented 38 species sold as either pets or for human consumption, but bats and pangolins are not on the list. Director of the research unit, Professor David McDonald, said bats are rarely consumed in central China and the pangolin trade is not a significant issue in Wuhan. The new report further fuels the now widely accepted lab leak theory that the COVID-19 virus originated from the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Now, we have some important updates regarding election integrity. A veteran Fulton County poll manager, Suzi Voyles, said she believes an examination of the county's absentee ballots is needed. During the November 14 recount, Voyles examined several stacks of ballots that came from drop boxes placed throughout Fulton County. Most of the ballots had already been handled. They had been written on and their edges were worn, showing obvious signs of use. However, one batch stood out. All the ballots looked pristine. The texture of the paper was also different. These mail-in ballots hadn't been folded, even though they supposedly had been in envelopes. But the most alarming peculiarity was the identically marked ovals next to Biden's name. The ovals were almost perfectly filled in except for an identical white spot. Voyles said she has never seen this before in 20 years. It looked like votes from this batch had been duplicated by a copy machine. All but 3 of the 110 ballots were labeled State Farm Arena and were for Biden. On election night, a late surge of mail-in ballots were counted after election monitors were dismissed from the same arena in Fulton County. Voyles wrote her testimony in a November 17th affidavit, and she wasn't alone. At least 3 other poll workers, Robin Hall, Judy Ubb, and Barbara Hartman, observed the same things in stacks of absentee ballots for Biden, processed by the county. The 3 joined Voyles in swearing under penalty of perjury that the ballots looked fake. Hartman said, "The absentee ballots looked as though they had just come out of a fresh stack. I could not observe any creases in the ballots, and it did not seem like they were folded and put into envelopes or mailed out. They looked as if they were stamped." Election watchdogs had used their affidavits to help convince Judge Bryon to unseal all of the 147,000 mail-in ballots counted in Fulton County. Currently, the inspection of the ballots have been delayed after the county filed a flurry of motions. Voting by mail traditionally was limited to voters who had clearly defined and well-documented reasons to be absent from the polls. However, in the last election, Democrats in key swing states lobbied to rule amid the coronavirus pandemic. Mail-in ballots are prone to voter errors. In a typical election, 1 in 20 mailed-in ballots are rejected. Garland Favorita, the lead petitioner in the case, said, quote, "We have what is almost surely major Fulton County involving 10,000 to 20,000 probably false ballots. In Georgia, Biden won by a margin of roughly 12,000. Still, both Republicans and Democrat officials in Georgia said they have found no credible evidence of widespread voter irregularities. But what election monitors testified to in affidavits seem to suggest a different story. While red states are reforming voting laws for election integrity, the Republican governor of Vermont, Phil Scott, signed a bill on June 7th to change the way the state conducts elections, including sending out mail-in ballots to all registered voters. In Vermont, Democrats control both the Senate and the House. The new bill passed by a wide margin. In a statement, Governor Scott echoed precisely what Democrats claim, that by sending ballots to every registered voter, it makes it easier to vote and encourage voter participation. Well, it will also make it easier to cheat. The new law essentially codifies the actions of Vermont officials during the 2020 election. They relaxed restrictions surrounding mail-in voting. The New York Times reported 75% of Vermont residents voted by mail last year. In addition to mandating widespread mail-in ballots, the new bill also provides a mechanism for correcting defective ballots. By contrast, Texas Governor Greg Abbott last week signed a new law that makes intentionally altering ballots or election reports a second-degree felony. Offenders could face up to 20 years in jail. Previously, it was a Class A misdemeanor, punishable by up to 1 year in jail. The Texas governor has made election integrity legislation a priority. Currently, a pile of bills are waiting for Abbott's signature. These bills address issues including prohibiting voters from establishing residence with the intention to influence an election, preventing county officials from accepting donations over $1,000, requiring voting machines to be auditable, and voting systems to be disconnected to any external networks. Making it harder to cheat should be the principal reason for election laws. And that's it for today, my friends. Check out this playlist right here for more eye-opening content. You can join me on the Eye Opener Telegram chat room and follow me on Newmaker, Gab, and Parler. Now, don't forget, please sign up to the email list so that we can stay in contact with each other. I'd like to thank you all, and I'll see you next time.